I have maintained ever since we saw that photo of that baby bump around her knees that Meghan was simply too scared and too dumb to see the great opportunity that life had given her with the entire surrogacy issue. She could have become the spokesperson for using a surrogate. She could have had legitimate influence and people would have had so much admiration for her. Because let's be honest here, modern medicine is amazing, and so the law that an heir has to be born of the body is pretty archaic. Meghan could have just embraced the whole idea of women's fertility issues, and she could have done what she said she wanted to do and drag the whole royal family into the modern era. But instead of doing that, and maybe putting her children's place in the line of succession in jeopardy, she decided the best idea was just to lie, to try to Photoshop her way forward and be as vague and weird as possible. She truly did miss an opportunity. She claimed that she wanted to modernize the monarchy and stand up for women's rights, but she had a great opportunity to do so, and she didn't do it. Meghan's supposed intelligence really just boils down to street smarts. Now, I know that she attended university, but I don't think she graduated. Anyway, Meghan Markle simply cannot process a major scam beyond the immediate gratification. She just thinks about the money that she's going to get, and she doesn't see what's going to happen later. She doesn't understand that her scams are not going to work out well. She's a grifter. She's a con artist. She just takes the money and runs. Her social age is that of about a 12-year-old, and so she's having trouble because her partner is not the brains behind this operation either. So basically, Meghan blew it. And I think Meghan just manipulated Harry. She convinced him that he and his family had caused a miscarriage and that it did something horrible to her body, and so she manipulated him into doing whatever she wanted. She just uses the media as an excuse because it's her real goal to get attention and to get money for herself. So maybe she convinced Harry that it was all his fault. He's not as good as William if he cannot protect and defend her. If what we believe is true, that Archofficial and Invisibed came from surrogates, then I think that information is bound to come out soon. And I also believe that most people are going to accept that the hands of everybody in the royal family were tied. I have said this other places, but I'm going to say it again. And I'm going to say it as quickly as I can this time. See, Meghan knows that she needs a child to secure her position in the royal family, and she also knows if the rumors about her past are true, after abortions it may be very difficult to conceive again. So how she arranges all of that to happen so soon after the wedding, I do not know, but she told Harry that she was pregnant, and he said they needed to wait until the first scan and make sure that everything was okay. Meghan agreed, but then she turned around and told the Queen at Eugenie's wedding. Harry was upset, and that was reported, but there was really nothing he could do at that point. And the royal family feels bad about the timing of the announcement, but they were happy for Harry. There was no reason to suspect that everything is not as Meghan says. But as time passes, especially after the fights in Australia between the two of them, when Harry was heard screaming, "Are you really pregnant this time?" the doubts about the alleged pregnancy start to creep in. And when the truth finally dawns, what in the world can the royal family do at that point? Are they going to go out and tell the whole world that Meghan's a big fat liar and a fraud, and the whole thing is just a sham and that she had never been pregnant at all? It's not like they could do that. The only thing they could really do was try to talk to Harry and Meghan and get them to be honest and tell everybody that they're using a surrogate or adopting or whatever it is. But then Meghan would not hold on to the power anymore. See, she wouldn't have any power because in order to be a real heir to the throne, the baby must be born of the royal mother, and that means no surrogates. I think this whole issue is something that Meghan discussed and arranged, and she probably had help, maybe from Marcus, maybe from her mother, who knows. But I am curious about whether or not those babies are Harry's. If to force him into proposing, if Meghan told Harry that she was pregnant before the engagement, but somehow lost the baby, then how in the world could he be convinced that he had to go through with IVF so soon after the wedding? I think that Harry assumed she could conceive naturally, or by then he came to understand that she was lying to force the marriage issue. Quite a tangled web they have woven, right? But let's not forget, at least 90% of the world does not care about them. They're simply not interested. So maybe people like Meghan even less for trying to trick the royal family and the world about being pregnant, and also for not announcing and also supporting surrogacy among people who really cannot have their own children. A commentator has said Charles can either dither on until he dies, patching up the snags and rips, constantly agonizing and permanently anxious as he continues to perpetuate the lie, or else he can deal with the issue decisively and take a step back to watch the dust settle. He could then pass on a cleansed and disinfected court to his mature middle-aged heir, who I think is more than ready for the job. His father retired and enjoyed a different life without royal responsibilities, and King Charles could too. He's already left his mark through his extensive charity work and commitment to supporting the Queen during his long stint as Prince of Wales. So there's no reason for us to try and break him by wringing every last drop of joy and energy from him now that he's in his 70s and well beyond normal retirement age. Imagine King Charles never having to suffer the constant attacks and innuendos that are lobbed at him and his darling wife on a near daily basis from the toxic two. We, that is Joe Public and his missus, are already drained and exhausted by them, and yet we are merely bystanders with a vested interest in the continuation of the monarchy and the Commonwealth as forces for good. We can take the occasional break and ignore their antics by filling our time with the minutiae of everyday life. But C&C have a rigid and structured existence, and their staff will do all the small stuff, leaving empty time outside official engagements for dreading what might be coming their way next. It's no way to live. Our newly crowned king has to go forward with the clear acceptance of the fact that this is not a skirmish that won't get any worse. He's already at war, and there is a bullet that must be firmly bitten by him if it's to end. He is fortunate enough to have inherited a legacy of wide public support from his mother, but he needs her strength too in order to slay the dragon currently camped out on his doorstep. He is in the position of a general who knowingly decide to sacrifice a battalion in the quest for overall victory and ultimate peace. Only a couple of weeks ago, he was presented with symbolic golden spurs, jeweled swords, rods, and scepters, and given the authority, symbolized by his crowning and loudly acknowledged by those 2,000 witnesses inside the abbey, to deal with the enemies of the state on our behalf. If, as I read somewhere, there is a super injunction that was granted to the crown, then only he can release the hounds by lifting it and informing the Fleet Street editors that they are no longer constrained in what they can report. But he has to release the entire pack at once. No playing around with hints and teasers, no half in, half out. It has to be all or nothing to give the wounds a chance to heal after being exposed to bright light and clean air. The alternative is that the badly mauled and wounded monarchy will slowly bleed to death on the battlefield. And you, do you agree with the views in my video? Please tell me what you think below in the comments section. If you think my video is helpful, don't be afraid to like and share it with your friends and family members who would like it anytime you want. And please subscribe